She pretended to be his girlfriend for 1 minute, but he refused to let go. She only needed him for 1 terrified minute, but the way he pulled her close made her wonder if she'd just stepped into the arms of the one man she should never walk away from. Before we dive into this story, make sure to subscribe. The dinner rush at Marlowe's diner always felt like a race Lena could barely keep up with. Plates clattering, orders shouted over sizzling pans, customers waving her down like she was a lifeline. But tonight, the chaos didn't bother her. It kept her moving, kept her from thinking, kept her from remembering. She balanced a tray on her shoulder, weaving between tables with practiced grace, her worn sneakers sliding across the polished floor as the bell above the door chimed again. Another customer, another tip, another minute closer to paying rent. "Lena, table 6 wants extra ketchup," her manager called. "I'm on it," she answered without slowing. Normal. Everything felt normal. Busy, loud, exhausting, but normal. Then she heard laughter. That laugh. Her blood turned to ice before her mind caught up. She didn't have to turn around. Didn't have to look. Every hair on her body stood up, a cold spike shooting down her spine as the familiar, oily voice drifted through the diner. "Well, well, look who we have here." Lena's hands went numb. The tray slipped. A glass fell, shattering across the floor. No, not here. Not now. Not again. She forced herself to move, stooping, gathering shards with shaking fingers. Customers murmured, offering napkins, the usual sympathy for a clumsy waitress. But Lena barely heard them. She felt him, close, too close. She glanced up and her stomach dropped. Her ex stood at the counter, leaning against it like he owned the place. That smile carved onto his face like a scar she'd never escape. His eyes raked over her, lingering where he knew she hated it. "Still working here?" he asked, amused. "Still pretending you're too good for me?" Her pulse hammered, breath trapped somewhere between panic and nausea. She stood too fast, knocking the napkin dispenser to the floor. He chuckled. "Ah, sweetheart. You nervous?" No, she was terrified. She looked around for her manager, gone to the back. Her coworkers? Busy. The exit? Too far. Every instinct in her screamed hide. So she did. She ducked behind the nearest booth, heart pounding, breath shallow, praying he hadn't seen. She pressed her back against the cushioned seat, eyes squeezed shut, trying to steady the tremble in her hands. Then she realized she wasn't alone. Someone sat in the booth. A man, a stranger. He didn't look up when she slid beside him in panic, didn't flinch. He simply continued cutting his steak with slow, precise movements. His suit, dark charcoal, perfectly tailored, didn't belong in a diner where the most expensive item was a $16 burger. His watch gleamed under the fluorescent lights, expensive enough to pay her monthly rent 3 times over. She swallowed hard. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "Hide beside me?" he murmured without looking up, voice smooth and cool like velvet over steel. "You did." His calmness almost startled her out of her fear. Almost. She peeked over the booth. Her ex was stalking between tables now, head turning, eyes scanning, searching for her. Her breath caught. "Please," she whispered, sinking back into the booth, throat tight. She didn't know why she said it. Didn't know him. Didn't trust him. But desperation made people reach for anything that resembled safety. "Please don't let him see me." Only then did the stranger pause. He lifted his gaze, dark eyes locking onto hers with unsettling intensity. He studied her face, the panic in her breathing, the fear she couldn't hide fast enough. Something flickered across his expression, something sharp, assessing. Dangerous. "Who is he?" the man asked softly. "No one," she lied too quickly. He raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "He looks at you like you belong to him." "I don't," she whispered fiercely. "Not anymore." Voices drifted closer. Heavy footsteps. Her ex's muttered insults. She felt the booth shake as he slammed his fist on a nearby table. The stranger's hand stilled on his fork. Then slowly he set it down. He leaned back, arm draping along the booth, as if he'd been waiting his whole life for something to pull him from boredom. His eyes darkened like a storm gathering. "Stay still," he murmured. Her breath hitched. "Why?" He smiled, but it wasn't soft. It wasn't kind. It was a warning. "Because whoever he is," the man said, voice a low murmur that curled down her spine, "he won't reach you while you're sitting with me." The diner lights flickered above them. Lena had no idea who she'd just pressed herself against, but she was about to learn exactly what kind of man sits perfectly calm while danger circles, and why grabbing this particular stranger might have been the last normal decision of her life. Lena had never felt her heartbeat so violently, each thud crashing against her ribs like it wanted out, like it knew staying in this diner with her ex loose and hunting was suicide. Her pulse roared in her ears as she watched him stalk closer, head twisting left and right, scanning every booth, every table. He wasn't calling her name. He didn't need to. He had that smile, the one that said he enjoyed the chase more than the catch. Lena shrank lower in the booth, fingers gripping the stranger's sleeve without meaning to. The fabric beneath her hand was smooth, expensive, impossibly out of place in a cheap diner that smelled like burnt toast and grease. She didn't breathe, couldn't. Her ex was 2 tables away. 1 table, just a few feet. She needed a miracle. Instead, she had him. The stranger she'd thrown herself into without thought. Quiet, composed, terrifyingly unbothered by her panic. He still hadn't moved, still hadn't touched her, still hadn't even asked her to let go. He just watched her ex like he was evaluating the weather. "Please," she whispered, the word cracking, slipping out before she could stop it. "Pretend you're my boyfriend." The stranger didn't jerk, didn't startle, didn't respond immediately. He turned his head toward her slowly, deliberately, like a man who had learned never to rush anything he didn't have to. His dark eyes swept over her face, taking in the fear, the shaking hands, the way she was curled against him like a drowning girl clinging to the nearest solid thing. His gaze warmed, just a fraction. Amusement flickered there, but beneath it lay something colder, sharper. A kind of calm that didn't belong to ordinary men. He spoke softly, near her ear, his voice a low murmur that vibrated through her bones. "Your boyfriend, HM." Heat rose to her cheeks. "Just for a minute, please. I just need him to leave me alone." Her ex's shadow stretched across the floor, falling over the next booth down. Seconds left. The stranger's fingers drummed once against the table. His jaw flexed. Then he stood. Not rushed, not hesitant. Just inevitable, like a storm rising. Lena watched in disbelief as he rose to his full height. Tall, broad, cut from a presence so intense it swallowed the room. Conversations died around them. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Even the fry cook peered through the pass-through window, sensing something was about to happen. The stranger adjusted his cuffs, straightened his jacket, and as he did, his hand slipped to Lena's waist, curling there in a slow, proprietary glide that jolted heat through her panic. It wasn't a hug. It wasn't a touch of reassurance. It was a claim. He angled her into his side, her palms landing against his chest before she could stop herself. She felt solid muscle beneath expensive fabric. Strength coiled and waiting. His voice dropped to a whisper meant only for her. "Look at me." She did, and saw the moment he shifted fully into the role she'd begged him to play. He lowered his head, his lips brushing the edge of her hair. Not touching, but close enough that anyone watching would think he had kissed her temple. Close enough that her ex, standing 3 feet away now, would see her tucked possessively against another man. The stranger stepped slightly in front of her, shielding her with his body without making it obvious. He kept his hand on her waist, thumb brushing once, slow, reassuring, in a way that felt almost protective. Then he turned to face her ex. Their eyes locked across the narrow aisle. Her ex stopped walking, stopped breathing, stopped smirking. Because the man Lena had grabbed, blindly, desperately, wasn't just a stranger. He was the kind of man danger listened to. A man whose stare could gut another person without shedding a drop of blood. The stranger smiled, not kindly, not welcoming, a slow curl of his lips that said, "Try it. I dare you." Lena swore she saw her ex pale, but she was too busy trying not to shake apart, pressed against a man whose arm felt like a wall of heat at her back. He spoke, low and lethal, his voice carrying just enough to reach her ex's ears. "You're looking for something?" A pause, a near-silent inhale, a shift of menace so smooth it made Lena's skin prickle. Then, "Or someone?" Her ex opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Because for the first time in her life, someone stood between her and danger looked terrified. Lena had expected the stranger to play along awkwardly, or maybe push her away with an offended glare. She'd expected confusion, surprise, irritation. Anything normal, anything human. What she didn't expect was how effortlessly he stepped into the role she'd begged for. The moment her ex froze in front of their booth, the stranger's hand tightened at her waist. Not a nervous squeeze, not a warning, but something frighteningly sure. His palm settled low on her hip, fingers splayed, warm through the thin cotton of her uniform shirt. Like he'd done this before. Like he'd pulled her into him 100 times. Like she was already his. Her breath hitched, and she swayed toward him without meaning to, as if her body recognized a safety her mind hadn't caught up to. The stranger angled his body slightly, guiding her closer until her side was pressed flush against him. His other hand rose in a slow, proprietary glide. Not rushed, not hesitant, curling along the back of her waist. Anyone watching would think he'd been waiting all night for her to come back to him. Her ex clearly thought so. His entire posture changed the second he recognized the man holding her. The smirk vanished. The swagger evaporated. The arrogance drained from his face like someone had slit open the ego he carried around like armor. He wasn't scared of her. He wasn't scared of the restaurant staff. He wasn't scared of consequences. But this man, he was terrified. Lena felt the subtle shift in the stranger's stance, the way he straightened, the way his chest rose, the way his thumb traced a single slow stroke along her hip, as if telling her, "Stay still. I've got you." Her ex swallowed hard. I didn't know she was with me, the stranger finished, his voice low and dangerously calm. "Yes, you didn't." There was no raised voice, no threat, no shouting. Just an easy, almost lazy tone that made the hairs rise on Lena's arms. Her ex took a step back, then another. Lena couldn't stop staring at him, at the sudden fear in his eyes, at the way his gaze flicked from her to the stranger like he was trying to calculate the safest exit, which was insane. Her ex wasn't the kind of man who backed down. He wasn't the kind who froze, or flinched, or apologized. She'd spent years learning that the hard way. Yet here he was, retreating as if he'd stumbled into the lion's den wearing raw meat. Her voice trembled. You know him?" Her ex's eyes widened, not at her question, but at the fact that she'd spoken at all. He didn't answer. Couldn't, apparently. The stranger tilted his head, studying the man who'd once owned every ounce of power over her. "I would take a step back," he said, just loud enough for her ex to hear. "2, if you're smart." He took 3. Her ex's voice cracked. I wasn't looking for trouble." "You found me," the stranger replied. Then he did something that made Lena's heart stop. He pulled her in closer. Not subtly, not hesitantly. He turned her so her chest brushed his, one arm curling around her waist like an iron band, as he lowered his head toward her ear. Pretend, pretend, pretend. That's what she'd asked for, but nothing about the way he held her felt like pretending. His breath ghosted against her jaw. Her pulse jumped. She stiffened, and he felt it, because his hand tightened at her waist, in a slow, steadying press. Then, loud enough for her ex to hear, "Go home, now." Her ex didn't argue. He didn't snarl or posture. or threaten to call the police. He simply turned and walked out, fast, nearly tripping over a chair in his rush to reach the door. The bell jingled violently as he shoved through it and disappeared into the night. Silence settled over the diner. Forks were suspended in midair, conversations froze. Every set of eyes was either on Lena or the man whose arm circled her like a claim. The stranger didn't look at anyone else. His attention stayed locked on her. Still close, still touching her, still holding her like he hadn't agreed to let her go yet. His voice dropped, quiet enough that only she could hear. Lena. Her breath caught. How do you know my name? Your manager said it earlier, he murmured, when you dropped the glass. Oh, right. Her whole body felt too hot, too aware of his hand at her waist. You asked me to pretend, he said, eyes tracing her face with slow, unsettling focus. But I don't play pretend. Her pulse skipped. What? What does that mean? She whispered. He dipped his head a fraction, lips brushing the air near hers, not touching, but close enough to steal her breath. It means, he murmured, the moment you put your hands on me, I decided your little act wasn't an act at all. Her stomach flipped. I decided, he continued, voice like velvet over a blade, that you're mine now. And for the first time in a long time, Lena wasn't sure she wanted to run. Lena tried to step back the moment the door swung shut behind her ex, but the stranger's hand didn't budge. His palm stayed firm on her waist, fingers warm and unyielding, like he could feel the tremor under her skin and refused to let her drift even an inch away. She swallowed and tried again, nudging his arm lightly. Thank you, she whispered, forcing her breath to steady. I'm okay now. I can go back to work. His thumb moved, just one slow stroke across her hip. A tiny motion, barely anything. And yet it sent a shiver racing up her spine so sharp she forgot how to breathe. Don't, he murmured, voice brushing the shell of her ear like velvet dragged across bare skin. Stay where you are. It wasn't a command, was it? It sounded more like a warning, a promise, a pull. Her pulse thudded in her throat. I should get back before my manager. He's not moving either, the stranger said. Lena blinked. She glanced past his shoulder, and sure enough, the entire diner staff had frozen like statues. Her manager, 2 busboys, even Sarah, who always had something to say. They were still, watching, terrified. Of him. She looked back just as he lowered his head the slightest bit, dark eyes locking onto hers with a focus that stole her words. Tell me your name, he said softly. Her heart stopped. What? Your name, he repeated, thumb brushing her hip again, slower this time. I want to hear it. Want, not need. Want. The distinction made heat curl low in her belly. It's Lena. Her voice came out smaller than she meant, too breathless, too exposed. My name is Lena. Something shifted behind his eyes. Not surprise, not recognition. Something deeper, darker. Like the sound of her name slotted into him like a missing piece. He repeated it once, quiet but devastatingly certain. Lena? Her knees almost buckled. The way he said it, like he'd been waiting for that name, like it satisfied something inside him, did things to her she was definitely not prepared to analyze. Not now. Not ever. She tried again to ease out of his hold. Okay, you know my name. Now I'm really fine, so I should... He finally looked down at where his hand held her, at the delicate cotton fabric of her work shirt and the skin beneath, and his grip tightened. Not painfully, not roughly. Just enough to let her know he wasn't ready to let go. You're shaking, he said, voice like a low rumble she felt in her ribs. That doesn't look fine to me. She stiffened. Anyone would shake after that. No, he said, studying every inch of her face. Not like this. Her breath hitched. Like what? His gaze lowered to her lips. Warmth flared there as if he'd touched them without moving. Like someone who's been scared for a long time, he said quietly. Long before tonight. Her chest constricted. He couldn't know that. No one saw that. She hid it too well, laughed at the right times, smiled through the pain, learned to walk on eggshells so quietly they might as well have been feathers. But this man, this stranger, he read her fear like it was printed in bold across her skin. Lena forced a small laugh. You don't even know me. I know enough. His eyes flicked toward the door her ex escaped through. Tell me who he is. Her throat went tight. No. That answer surprised even herself. His jaw ticked, a subtle shift that somehow radiated danger. Lena. I said no, she whispered again, softer this time, but firm. I don't need help. I don't need you to fix anything. I just needed him to go away. Is that what you think I'm doing? He asked. Fixing something? She held her breath. His thumb slid one more time along her hip, sending another ripple of heat through her. I helped, he said. Because you asked me. Her pulse fluttered. And now I'm letting you go. Thank you, really, but... Say thank you again, he murmured, leaning just enough that she had to tilt her chin up to hold his gaze. And I'll think you're trying to run. She froze. He smirked. A slow, knowing curve of lips that made her heartbeat stumble. There it is, he said softly. The truth. What truth? You're afraid of him, he answered. But you're more afraid of how safe you just felt with me. Her stomach flipped violently. Heat shot up her neck and into her cheeks. I'm not, she tried. You are. His voice lowered even more. And that's why I won't let go. She didn't know what stunned her more. The fact that he said it. Or the fact that he was right. Because beneath her fear, beneath the adrenaline, beneath the panic, there was something else. Something worse. Something far more dangerous. For the first time in years, she didn't feel small. Didn't feel powerless. Didn't feel like prey. She felt protected. And the stranger holding her seemed to know exactly what that did to her. He leaned closer, breath brushing her cheek, voice a quiet, devastating promise. Tell me to let go, he whispered. And I will. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Not one word. Not one lie. He smiled again, slow, dark, victorious, and drew her even closer. That's what I thought, he murmured. Lena forced herself to breathe, to find her voice, to claw back even a shred of control after the way this man, this stranger, had unraveled her with nothing but a touch and a tone. Okay, she said, lifting her chin. That's enough pretending for one night. My ex is gone. You can let go now. His fingers flexed at her waist, not loosening, not releasing, tightening. Just a fraction. A warning disguised as a reminder. His eyes lowered to hers, sharp and dark and far too focused. Pretending, he echoed, like the word tasted wrong. Is that what you think this was? Her pulse skittered. What else would it be? He studied her face as if looking for something she didn't even know she had. A man like that, he said quietly, jerking his chin toward the door her ex had fled through, doesn't get to walk in here like he owns your fear. I don't belong to him, she snapped before she could stop herself. No, he agreed. You don't. His thumb brushed her hip again, a slow, deliberate stroke that sent heat racing up her spine. But you touched me, not him. Her breath hitched. That meant nothing. Wrong. His voice dropped, devastatingly soft. It meant everything. She shook her head, panic mixing with electricity under her skin. I'm not yours. This can't look. Thank you for helping me, but I really need to go. I heard you, he said. I just don't agree. Lena blinked. That's not how this works. The corner of his mouth curved like he found that adorable. It is tonight. She shoved lightly at his chest, not enough to hurt, just enough to create space. Except his body didn't move. He didn't even sway. A solid wall disguised as a man. And her hands, traitorous, trembling, only ended up splayed over the smooth fabric of his shirt, feeling the heat beneath it. Let me go, she whispered. His gaze lowered to where she touched him. No. The word wasn't loud. It wasn't harsh. It was final. Her stomach dropped. Why? Because if a man like that thinks he can touch what's mine. He leaned in, lips brushing her hairline, voice a deadly promise. He's mistaken. Her pulse crashed against her ribs. I'm not. You are. She froze. You chose me, he continued. You clung to me. You put your body against mine. And he saw it. That was survival, she said desperately. I panicked. Then panic again, he murmured. But don't pretend it didn't matter. She shook her head, stepping back, this time with enough force that he let her pull away, though his eyes never left her. I need to go, she said again. Then I'll take you. No. He raised one brow, daring her to argue. Do you think I'm letting you walk out alone after he showed up here looking for you? He wasn't looking for me, she whispered. Oh, Lena. He said her name like a sigh, full of dark knowing. Yes, he was. Her heart stopped. How do you... I watched him the moment he walked in. His gaze softened, but only slightly. He wasn't hungry. He wasn't here to eat. His eyes went straight to the corners, the back booths, the shadows. She swallowed hard. Looking for me. Exactly. He stepped closer. Not touching her, yet, but close enough to feel the heat of him again. And if he sees you alone out there? She looked toward the window, toward the shadowed parking lot, the single flickering light, the long stretch to her beat-up car. Every instinct in her screamed danger. He won't, she said weakly. He wouldn't. He would, the stranger cut in. Men like him don't stop. Not unless someone stronger makes them. She flinched. His expression softened instantly, a glimmer of something like regret in his eyes. Let me walk you, he said, gentler this time. Not because you're mine. Not because you touched me. Because you're scared, and you shouldn't have to be. The sincerity in his tone hit harder than any threat he'd thrown earlier. Lena swallowed. I don't even know your name. He stepped close enough that her breath stalled. Mikhail, he murmured. But you can call me what everyone else in this city does. She backed up, instinct firing. What's that? She whispered. He reached past her, plucked her apron where she'd wrung it nervously, and straightened it with a slow, deliberate swipe. Danger, he said softly, to men who hurt women. Her knees nearly gave out. Now, he asked, holding out his hand. Not a demand this time, but an invitation. Walk with me. Her heart pounded. Her fear screamed no. But her feet didn't move at all. Not until he stepped beside her, warm and solid and terrifyingly protective. And then, without even realizing it, she slipped her hand into his. He closed his fingers around hers like he'd been waiting. The night air hit her like a slap. Cold, wet, heavy with the scent of rain on concrete. The diner door clicked shut behind Lena, and for a few blissful seconds, the world felt still. Quiet. Breathable. Mikhail walked beside her, not touching her, but close enough that his presence felt like a shield. She could feel him without looking, like heat, like danger, like a warning to the dark itself. The parking lot stretched out in front of them, dimly lit, puddles catching the glow of the single flickering lamp above. Her old car sat crooked near the dumpster, the only vehicle besides Mikhail's sleek black SUV, parked with predatory precision. She forced a shaky breath and whispered, Thank you for walking me. Really. Mikhail stopped, turning his head just slightly, as if listening to something she couldn't hear. Don't thank me yet, he murmured. A chill ran down her spine. What do you mean? He didn't answer. Instead, his shoulders stiffened. His jaw tightened. His gaze sharpened on a shadow near the back of the lot. And before Lena could even register what was happening, a hand clamped around her wrist. Hard. Yanking. She gasped, stumbling forward as pain shot through her arm. Well, 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 her ex hissed, stepping out from behind a pillar, face twisted with a rage she knew too well. "You think you can run from me? Hide behind strangers? Make me look like an idiot in there?" His grip flattened her bones together, sparks of pain tearing up her arm. "Let go," she gasped. "You're hurting me." "No," he snapped, dragging her toward him. "You belong to me, Lena, and you're going to learn what happens when you humiliate." Something moved behind her. A shift in the air, a shadow detaching from darkness. And then suddenly, her ex was ripped backward so violently Lena stumbled, nearly falling. A hand wrapped around her elbow, steadying her. "Mikhail." He moved without sound, without hesitation, without effort. One moment he wasn't there. The next, he had her ex pinned to the asphalt with a force so precise, so controlled, it didn't even seem possible. Her ex choked, struggling uselessly as Mikhail's boot pressed lightly, just lightly, against his shoulder blade, holding him down like a misbehaving dog. "Touch her again," Mikhail said, voice low and slow. "And see what happens next." Her ex wheezed. This is assault?" "No," Mikhail cut in. "This is mercy." That stopped the world. His tone wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. Just honest. Deadly honest. Lena's heart hammered so violently she thought she might pass out. She clutched her wrist, skin throbbing where her ex had squeezed. Mikhail noticed. His eyes flicked to her injury, and something inside him snapped. He crouched beside her ex, one knee pressing into the pavement, his face calm, too calm, as he tilted the man's head up by a fistful of hair. "You left marks on her," Mikhail said softly. Her ex whimpered. "You bruised her before," Mikhail continued. "I can see the old ones. I can smell the fear." He dropped his ex's head, letting it thud against the ground. "Men like you," he murmured, "always make the same mistake." Her ex coughed. "What mistake?" Mikhail looked over his shoulder at Lena, then back down at the man beneath him. "You confuse silence with weakness." Her chest seized. She looked away, but her ex didn't. He froze, eyes widening in sudden realization, sudden terror. Wait, look, I didn't know she was with..." "That's your second mistake," Mikhail said, rising to his feet with predatory grace. "Assuming what belongs to me can be touched without consequence." Lena's breath caught. "I'm not..." His head snapped toward her. Not angry, not possessive, protective. A warning to herself not to diminish what was happening, not to pretend this wasn't real, not to make herself small for someone who had nearly destroyed her. He motioned her closer with a gentle flick of his fingers. She hesitated, but the truth was, she didn't feel safe standing anywhere except near him. Mikhail slid an arm around her waist as soon as she stepped within reach, not trapping, not controlling, but steadying her shaking body as if he'd been doing it for years. Her ex's voice trembled. "You can't do this. You don't know who I am." Mikhail chuckled. It was the coldest sound she'd ever heard. "I know exactly who you are," he said. "I watched you hurt her in there, without even touching her." He stepped forward, making her ex flinch so hard his head hit the pavement again. "And I saw what she looked like the second my hand touched her waist." Lena's lungs froze. He tightened his hold around her, not possessively, but protectively, like she wasn't an act, or a moment, or a stranger's request. Like she was already his to guard. "She is," he continued, "the first thing that's mattered to me in a very, very long time." Her ex choked on a breath. Lena choked on reality, and Mikhail leaned down, voice soft as a funeral hymn. "You get one chance to leave," he whispered. "One." He stepped back, letting her ex scramble to his feet. "Run!" He did. He ran like the devil himself was clawing at his heels. Silence fell heavy as the night pressed in. Lena turned slowly toward Mikhail, heart racing, wrist throbbing, breath caught somewhere between terror and something far more dangerous. "Why did you do that?" she whispered. Mikhail looked at her like the answer was obvious. "You asked me to pretend," he said. "But I don't pretend." His fingers brushed the inside of her wrist, feather-light, reverent, as if touching the part her ex had grabbed was somehow sacred. "You come to me scared," he murmured, "and you don't walk away alone." Her stomach flipped, her pulse fluttered, her world shifted. "Mikhail," she whispered, unsure what to say next. He stepped closer, breath brushing her cheek. "You're safe now," he said softly, "as long as you're with me." Lena stood in the middle of the parking lot, the puddles around her trembling from the vibrations of her own shaking legs. Her wrist ached, her lungs felt bruised from trying to pull in too much air. Her ex's footsteps had faded into the night, swallowed by distance and fear. But Mikhail, no, the stranger, still stood in front of her. Calm, unbothered, entirely too composed for a man who had just pinned someone to asphalt like it was nothing. He stepped closer and the dim parking lot lights caught on the sharp lines of his jaw, the cut of his suit, the dark glint in his eyes. "Are you hurt anywhere else?" he asked. The gentleness in his tone shook her more than the violence had. She shook her head automatically. "No, just scared." "That's normal," he murmured. "Normal?" she echoed with a hollow laugh. "For what just happened, yes." She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to process the adrenaline still buzzing under her skin. "I still don't even know your name," she whispered. He stilled. It was subtle, just the faintest hesitation, but enough to make her pulse spike. "Earlier, inside, you said your name was Mikhail." His gaze drifted past her shoulder, scanning the shadows again before returning to her face. "That's what most people call me," he said softly. "Most people?" Lena frowned. "Who calls you something else?" He breathed out slowly, like he was weighing something, judging something, deciding something. Then he stepped close enough that she felt the heat of his body again, that same warmth she'd used like a shield minutes earlier. "My real name," he said, voice low enough to vibrate through her bones, "is Matteo." She blinked. "Matteo?" His jaw flexed. "Matteo De Luca." The world stopped. Not metaphorically, not dramatically. Everything froze. The rain, the night, her heartbeat. De Luca. Her knees nearly buckled. Because even if she'd never met him, even if she tried to stay out of the city's darker whispers, everyone knew that name. Everyone. "You," she choked out. "You're..." "Yes." "The De Luca," she whispered, voice shaking. "The family. The one that runs half this city," he finished quietly. "That one, yes." She stumbled back a step, trembling. "You can't be serious." One dark brow lifted. "Do I look like a man who tells jokes?" Her throat closed. "Mikhail, Matteo, De Luca, the air, the shadow." The whispered warning mothers used to scare their reckless sons. The man whose enemies simply disappeared. And she had grabbed him, held onto him, begged him to pretend to be hers. She felt faint. "I didn't know," she breathed, horrified. "I know. If I had, you wouldn't have stopped." His eyes softened, only slightly, but enough to make her chest tighten. "Fear doesn't erase instinct, Lena. You came to me because your body decided it was safer near mine than anywhere else." "That's not..." She stopped, because it was true, terrifyingly true. "Trust your instincts," he murmured, but trust wasn't the word coursing through her. It was dread, fear, awe, confusion. "You're Matteo De Luca," she repeated, still disbelieving. I've heard things. Everyone has. Most of them are true," he said, not bothered in the slightest. "Some are exaggerated." "Exaggerated?" she whispered. "People say you..." He stepped closer, eyes locking onto hers, until her breath caught. "They say I kill," he finished. "They say I ruin men who touch what's mine. They say I don't forgive." The air thickened. Lena's voice was barely a breath. "Do you?" "Yes." Her stomach dropped. "But," he added, tilting her chin up with one finger until she had no choice but to meet his eyes, "they leave out something important." She couldn't speak. "I protect," he said. "Absolutely. Without question. Without hesitation." Her lips parted. "Why me?" "Because," Matteo murmured, brushing a thumb across the inside of her wrist, the same wrist her ex had grabbed. "You ran to me before you even knew who I was." "I didn't know I was running to you," she whispered. "You knew enough," he countered. "Your fear chose me over him, and that choice is all I need." "That doesn't make me yours," she insisted, heart pounding wildly. His smile was slow, dark, and far too sure. "No," he said softly, "but it makes you mine to protect." Her breath tangled in her throat. "I don't want—" "You do," he said simply. She opened her mouth to argue, to deny, to push back. But Matteo stepped closer, brushing her hair from her face with a touch so gentle it felt impossible coming from the same man who'd pinned her ex like it was nothing. "You grabbed the devil," he murmured, "and the devil answers." Her pulse skipped. "You're safe now," he whispered, leaning close enough that the warmth of his breath ghosted over her cheek. "As long as my name stays in your life." And despite every instinct screaming she should run, her heart whispered something dangerously close to relief. Matteo De Luca didn't ask. He didn't ask if she wanted help. He didn't ask if she wanted him around. He didn't ask if she was comfortable with the way he slid into her life like he'd always belonged there. He simply appeared. The next morning, when Lena stepped out of her apartment building, hair damp, uniform wrinkled, eyes still heavy from too little sleep and too many nightmares, she nearly screamed when a sleek black car rolled to a slow, deliberate stop at the curb. The window lowered. Matteo sat behind the glass, suit crisp, expression unreadable, fingers tapping once against the steering wheel. "Get in," he said. There was no threat in his voice, no sharp edge, no impatience. But it wasn't a request. Lena hugged her backpack against her chest. I can't. I have work. It's not far." "I know," he answered. "That's where I'm driving you." Her stomach twisted. "You don't have to do that." "I do," he said calmly, as if explaining gravity. "Your ex knows where you live. He watched you leave last night. He will try again." A cold rush shivered down her spine. "How do you know that?" she asked. Matteo's gaze flicked toward the building windows, too quickly for her to catch before it was gone. "I know men like him," he replied. She swallowed. "Still, you can't just decide to pick me up." "I can," he said, "and I have." Her pulse skittered. She stood frozen on the sidewalk, torn between fear of him and fear of everything else. Matteo watched her, patient but unmoving, like a man waiting for a truth she hadn't accepted yet. Eventually, she walked forward. She told herself it was because she needed safety, not because something in his presence pulled her like a tide. The passenger door popped open from the inside. She slid in, heartbeat wild, the scent of leather and cologne closing around her like a second skin. He didn't speak for 3 blocks, didn't look at her, didn't try to touch her, but she felt him. All of him. A force, a shadow, a guardian who protected like it was instinct, not choice. At the diner, he parked in the far corner of the lot. "I'll be here when your shift ends," he said. Her breath tangled. That's really not necessary. His eyes met hers with slow, devastating certainty. "It is." She swallowed hard. "You're acting like I belong to you." Matteo turned his head, studying her with a depth that made her stomach flip. "I'm acting," he said quietly, "like someone tried to hurt you under my watch." "Under your watch?" she echoed. "We don't even know each other." "We will." Her throat tightened. "Matteo." "Lena," he cut in, voice soft but unyielding. "You came to me. You trusted me when you were terrified. You grabbed me like I was the only safe place in the room. That means you're under my protection." "That's not how this works," she whispered. He leaned across the console, not touching her. Just close, too close, breath brushing her cheek, his words a low promise. "It is now." She barely managed to escape the car, legs unsteady, breath uneven. For the next week, Mateo was everywhere. He picked her up, dropped her off, waited outside the diner, sitting in a booth in the back, like a shadow that only she noticed. His presence should have felt suffocating, possessive, controlling. It wasn't. It was stabilizing. Her ex never showed again. The nightmares faded. For the first time in years, she stopped checking over her shoulder. And that terrified her more than anything. Because safety shouldn't feel like ownership. Protection shouldn't feel like being claimed. Yet every time she stepped into Mateo's car, her heart slowed. Every time he walked beside her, her breath steadied. Every time his eyes scanned the room before hers did, she felt something dangerously close to relief. One night, after a grueling double shift, she stepped outside and found Mateo leaning against his car, jacket off, sleeves pushed up, watching the door like he'd been waiting only for her. Her chest tightened. "You don't have to do this," she said softly. He pushed away from the car, walking toward her with controlled, purposeful strides. "Lena, I want you to ask yourself something." She shivered. "What?" "When you walk out here," he murmured, lifting her chin gently with one finger, "whose face do you hope to see?" Her breath caught. Her silence was an answer. Mateo's eyes darkened, softening and sharpening at once. "That's why I'm here," he whispered. And for the first time, Lena didn't try to deny it. The alley behind Marlowe's diner was usually empty at closing time. A few trash cans, a flickering lamp, the hum of distant traffic. Nothing special, nothing dangerous. Tonight it felt like a trap. Lena stepped out, tying her apron around her bag, exhaustion dragging at her limbs. She expected Mateo's black SUV idling near the curb, its headlights a silent beacon calling her home. But the street was empty. No car, no headlights, no Mateo. A cold ripple spread through her chest. He had never been late, never missed a shift, never left her unprotected. The empty street felt wrong, hollow, too quiet. She pulled out her phone with trembling fingers. Maybe he got stuck in traffic. Maybe he had a meeting. Maybe. A hand slammed onto the brick wall beside her head. She jolted violently, dropping her phone. "Miss me, sweetheart?" Her ex stood in the alley's mouth, blocking the exit, breath reeking of cheap liquor and a bitterness she knew too well. His smile was a twisted parody of warmth, the kind of smile that once meant bruises blooming on her skin. "No," she whispered. "Oh, come on," he crooned, stepping closer. "Don't be like that. You and I, we go way back. You think you're too good now because you're hanging around him?" He spat the last word like poison. Lena backed up until her spine hit the wall, her pulse roaring in her ears. "You have one chance," she said, voice shaking. "Leave me alone." He laughed. Actually laughed. "You think he's gonna protect you? That guy? Someone like him doesn't care about someone like you." He reached for her wrist. Reflexively, she pulled away. He grabbed harder. Always the wrist. Always the same grip. Always the same reminder that he could take from her what he wanted. "You're coming with me," he hissed. "I've been patient. Too patient. Time to go home." "No," she tried to twist free, panic rising like bile. But then she saw it. A shift in the shadows behind her ex. A ripple of movement. A presence she felt before she saw. Mateo. "No!" He stepped out of the darkness with the kind of stillness that made the world seem to pause. No footsteps. No sound. Just appearing the way a storm appears on the horizon. Inevitable. Overwhelming. Unstoppable. Her ex didn't notice at first. He was too busy gripping her wrist, too busy spitting venom. "You think you can embarrass me? You think you can just—" He never finished. Because Mateo's hand closed around the back of his neck like a steel trap. Her ex was ripped backward, thrown into the opposite wall so hard the impact echoed down the alley. He slid to the ground, dazed, coughing. "Get up," Mateo said softly. It wasn't a command. It wasn't a threat. It was a death sentence wrapped in silk. Her ex looked up and froze. This time the fear in his eyes wasn't confusion. wasn't irritation, wasn't arrogance. It was terror. Mateo stepped closer, the cold fury in his eyes, a kind of violence Lena had never seen, even in her nightmares. It wasn't rage. It was control, precision, purpose. "You touched her again," Mateo said, crouching in front of the man like a predator studying its prey. "After I warned you." Her ex sputtered. I just wanted to talk. She belongs—" A boot pressed lightly, almost gently, onto his chest. "Finish that sentence," Mateo whispered, "and it will be the last thing you ever say." Her ex choked, eyes widening. Lena swallowed hard, heart pounding. Mateo's presence filled the alley, swallowing the cold, swallowing the dark. His jaw ticked once, his shoulders rolled back. Every part of him radiated lethal calm. "Let me explain," her ex begged, voice cracking. I didn't know who she was to you." Mateo's eyes darkened in a way that made the entire world go still. "That is your third mistake," he murmured. "The first was touching her. The second was touching her again. And the third," he leaned close, voice dropping to a whisper sharp enough to cut, "was thinking her worth depends on who she's with." Lena didn't realize she was shaking until Mateo turned his head toward her. Not the violent Mateo. Not the monster kneeling over her ex, but the man she'd first clung to in the diner. His voice softened. "Lena." She blinked, breath trembling. "Come here." She stepped toward him, drawn not by command but by instinct, by the safety he radiated, even while dangerous. Mateo rose to his feet, slow and controlled, never taking his eyes off her ex until he stood in front of her, blocking her from view with his body. He tilted her chin up gently. "Did he hurt you again?" She shook her head, tears threatening. "He grabbed me. But you got here before... I know." His voice was quiet, lethal. "I always will." Behind him, her ex scrambled away on his hands, but Mateo didn't move to chase him. He didn't have to. The message was delivered. The fear planted. The lines drawn in blood. Mateo turned back to her, brushing a tear from her cheek with the back of his knuckle. "You're shaking," he murmured. "You scared him," she whispered. Mateo's jaw flexed. "Good. You scared me," she added softly. His hand froze. Then he cupped her face, thumb sweeping under her eye with a tenderness that broke her open. "I'm not here to scare you," he said. "I'm here to end what scares you." For the first time, she saw both sides of him, the protector and the destroyer. And she finally understood why every rumor about Mateo DeLuca started with awe and ended with fear. He burned the world to protect what mattered, and somehow, whether she was ready or not, that now included her. Mateo's club wasn't a place people casually walked into. It wasn't on any map, had no website, no neon sign. Its entrance was nothing but a darkened doorway in an alley that respectable people pretended not to see. The kind of place where every patron arrived in silence and left with secrets. Lena stepped inside anyway. This time, she didn't tremble. This time, her pulse wasn't panic. It was anticipation, a strange warmth that had slowly replaced her nightmares over the past few weeks. The bouncer at the door nodded at her. "Miss." The word miss, not ma'am, not hey you, not sweetheart, still startled her. Mateo had made it clear no one touched her, talked down to her, or even looked at her the wrong way. So they didn't. Inside, the club pulsed with low music and murmured conversations. Velvet shadows danced along the walls, and golden lights cast everything in a warm, decadent glow. Men in tailored suits and women dripping diamonds occupied private tables guarded by men with discreet earpieces. Lena felt like she'd stepped into another world. Mateo's world. She wasn't sure she belonged here, but he had asked her to come, requested her specifically, said her name in that voice that worked like a key, unlocking parts of her she didn't know were closed. She scanned the room. Mateo wasn't visible yet. She felt him anyway. People parted for her as she wove through tables. She didn't miss the glances, the curious ones, the assessing ones. the ones that said they knew exactly who she was here for. At the bar, she slipped onto a stool and ordered water, her gaze drifting across the room in search of the dark suit she'd grown accustomed to. A man slid onto the stool beside her. Not Mateo. "Hey there," the stranger drawled, leaning just a little too close. "Haven't seen you around before." Lena stiffened. He smiled, charming at first glance, but with eyes that flickered too boldly across her body. "You here alone?" She swallowed. "No." "Your boyfriend around?" he teased. "No," she answered again, but this time the word came out differently. Soft, certain, final. The stranger's grin widened. "Then maybe you shouldn't be sitting alone in a place like this." He reached for her hand. He didn't touch her, because a shadow moved behind him so fast the air shifted like a change in pressure before a storm. Mateo's hand closed around the stranger's wrist with quiet precision. "Wrong," Mateo murmured. The stranger froze. I'm sorry, I didn't..." Mateo didn't look at him. His eyes were on Lena. Only on Lena, and the look on his face, dark, intent, burning, made her forget how to inhale. He slid behind her, crowding her back gently, not forcing, anchoring. His arm wrapped around her waist, finding the exact place she'd grabbed him the first night. His hand rested there like it belonged, fingers splayed, thumb brushing her hip with a possessive warmth that made her entire body flush. He turned to the stranger at the bar, his voice slow and polite. Too polite. "Walk away." The man didn't hesitate. He fled. Mateo leaned down, his lips skimming the edge of her hair, his breath warm against her cheek. "You okay?" he asked. Her voice failed her. She nodded. He hummed, pleased, letting his hand tighten slightly at her waist as he guided her off the stool and into the shadowed corner of the club, away from prying eyes, but close enough that she could still hear the heartbeat of the room. Only when they were alone did she find her words. He wasn't doing anything. Not really. Mateo's eyes flicked over her, slow and deliberate. "He touched your space. That's enough." "You can't," she swallowed. "You can't protect me from everyone." He stepped closer, eliminating even the suggestion of distance. "Watch me." Lena's breath trembled out of her. "You can't claim me," she whispered as though her voice betrayed her. But Mateo only smiled. Not with amusement, with certainty. "I'm not claiming you," he murmured. His thumb stroked her hip, the exact place he touched the night everything changed. "I'm telling you the truth." She blinked. "What truth?" "That night in the diner," Mateo said quietly, "you didn't grab a stranger." Her heart slammed against her ribs. "You grabbed me," he continued. "You chose me without knowing my name. And I don't take that lightly." Lena shook her head, overwhelmed. "Mateo, I didn't choose." "Yes," he murmured, brushing a curl behind her ear, thumb grazing her jaw with careful precision. "You did. And I've been choosing you every moment since." Her knees weakened. He leaned closer, lips nearly at her ear, voice a low growl that melted into her bones. "I don't pretend, Lena. Not with you." Her breath hitched violently. "You chose me that night." His hand moved up her spine, slow, devastating. "And now, I'm choosing you." Her eyes fluttered closed. "Officially." She opened her mouth to speak, but Mateo touched his forehead to hers, stealing every word she meant to say. "And anyone who doesn't understand what that means," he murmured, his voice dark enough to send shivers down her spine, "will learn very quickly." Her heart contracted. Her fear was gone. Her doubt was gone. And for the first time she understood what it meant to be protected by a man the city feared. It meant safety. It meant being seen. It meant never standing alone again. But more than anything, it meant Mateo wasn't letting go. Not now. Not ever.